we have a V12 out of a Jag XJS that allegedly sounds like marbles bouncing around when it's running. This engine came out of an 86 XJS. The previous owner did some top-end work with the injectors, and when they went to start it back up, said that it sounded like marbles were bouncing around inside the engine. Now we have it. We're gonna tear it down and see exactly what went wrong. This might be the biggest engine that I've done a teardown on yet.
And big thanks to WD-40 brand for partnering with us on this video. To make our disassembly life so much easier, we are going to be using WD-40 brand Specialist Penetrant and most likely some Specialist Silicone Spray. And if you're watching this and thinking, hey, that's not where I use WD-40, keep in mind these two are specialized products for specific uses, not the multi-use formula that you're probably used to.
Okay, let's get this thing torn down. Now there's some stuff just kind of thrown up here on the top. The story I got from the owner, this is the coil, by the way. It's a Lucas Electrics coil, and if you know older school automotive, just how disastrous that phrase is to have Lucas Electronics. So allegedly what happened was the previous owner rebuilt the injectors, they said, which this is the injector rail right here. And when they were finished and started it up, rattle, 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 sadness down below. This is cool, by the way. I guess that means these injectors are rebuildable. This engine is a bit before my time. Next, we can get rid of our distributor, which is fastened down here. The distributor just broke, completely broke. Again, more of those sweet, sweet Lucas Electronics. How about that? Just broke right in 3 pieces. Here's our distributor. This is likely the first time my 23mm socket has ever been used. Let's rotate this engine around and see what it be like. See our distribulator turning. This is actually the vacuum advance for the distributor. The diaphragm looks like it's long been broken. That is the vacuum advance. So we got our front accessories. I think first thing I need to do before I go any further is get rid of this fan and viscous coupler. As you can see, they tried to cut it off. Likely ran into the metal band that's behind it. I like 13. Do you like 13? Because I like 13. Goal is to not bust my hand open. Oh, that was no problem. Or I'm just rounding each one of these off. While I take this off, let me explain to you what this viscous coupler that I'm removing actually does. So this viscous coupler is meant to either let the fan free spin or to lock it in. So when the engine's cold, when this piece is cold in temperature, the fan will freewheel to help the engine warm up faster. Once it gets hot, it'll lock the fan and allow cooling to happen for your engine. Funny enough, VW and Audi ran a similar version of this all the way up to like 2005. We got our alternator. I'm assuming this is a water pump. This looks likely power steering. Smog pump, probably. Coolant lines, AC compressor, which is just the world's biggest AC compressor. Let's get some of this nonsense off in the front. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with a little penetrant. Some of this stuff is actually pre-penetranted because it's covered in oil already, so that's fun for us. I like that all these bolts are metric. Let's not destroy your floor, Chucko. That's a big boy. By the way, this engine is actually aluminum block and aluminum cylinder heads, so maybe one day this will make a cool engine coffee table type thing for somebody. Probably not me, because I don't really want to, but one of you guys might. Also, fun fact, this is probably the only Jaguar thing I've ever worked on in my whole life. If this is some kind of American-sized fastener, I ain't doing it. You can just forget about that. So I pulled off this little water pipe housing thing with a sensor in it. Look at all this crust in the cooling system. That's not supposed to be in there. Probably better for these guys that they didn't end up using this engine, because that's nasty. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this water pump off without taking the crank pulley off, but we're gonna try it. Oh, ew. We got some drippage. Pigment to the rescue, because that's gross. So this water pump housing is basically this entire front of this engine. That's pretty wild. Ugh, it's dripping in the backside too, yuck. It's so nasty. What's hilarious is there's absolutely no need for me to like rush this job, yet I'm still trying to flat rate it. But anyway, what my plan was to take that out. Now I think I should be able to rotate this up a little. Look at that. So this is definitely the water pump, and it is definitely nasty. Look at that. Oh, it's like, why is it foamy? It's like foamed. Have you guys ever seen that? I've never seen coolant foamy and nasty like that. Oh, gross. Freaking artwork here, friends. It's like your pumpkin cold foam from Starbucks for the season. Maybe gingerbread latte for the season. Look at that. Okay, so I got the front pulley off. Now we gotta try and take this back one off. It's a big boy, so I got the big boy Milwaukee out. I don't know if there's like a special way to do this or not, so this could get silly. It didn't get silly at all. It just came right out. And I gotta tell you, I'm not mad about that at all. That was 100 times easier coming off than I had sort of anticipated. Look at it, it's got this like this conical sleeve on it. That's kind of neat. With a keyway right there. The old Woodruff, I don't know if this other sleeve comes off or if it stays. It does come off. That's cool. There is a cover right here. That's obviously the timing cover. What we should do now is move up to the top side and get the cylinder heads off. These manifolds are kind of awesome. Also another place I think would make cool garage art. Also, they're not that much bolted on, which is nice. The other bank is pretty much the same. I'm not sure how these cylinders are labeled as far as bank 1, bank 2, and which cylinder's which. I'm sure these studs that the manifold's on are a little distorted. Let's persuade it gently. There we go, just a little gentle persuasion, but look at how cool this is. I'm gonna deal with some of this wiring, getting all this nonsense out of here, and then we'll take the valve covers off and expose our valve train. These are all like bolted with nice brackets, which is a far departure from modern engines, which everything's held in with plastic. They called these like Satan electronics from Lucas. Again, that was a little before my time, so I never really had a proper Lucas experience. But if you talk to the old timers, they'll tell you. Kind of like the way people view Volkswagen electronics, I think in today's modern world era. Remember when we did the Mark III to Mark 7 swap?
I've been sitting in this car for 2 days dealing with this interior wiring is what I've been doing. And I'm tired of it, and it smells in here, and I'm uncomfortable. So there, that's what you want to hear. There you go.
That's not too much. Let's get these valve covers off next. Like much of this engine, I think these valve covers would be cool wall art. Ooh, yeah. That actually looks great underneath there for unknown mileage and almost 40 years. That does expose our dual roller timing chain though, and cam that I dropped a bunch of dirt on. If we were rebuilding this, we would have definitely wanted to clean all this off before we started, but let's do the same thing for the other valve cover. Nice gasket. How does this look? I mean, it looks pretty darn good. Cam looks good. We'll take that out in a minute after we do our timing chain. Now we have this coolant line that runs all the way around our engine, except on the backside. I'm gonna take that off next. The thing that I've found most interesting so far on this engine is how much there's just no plastic. It's almost all metal. And that's pretty cool because it's lasted, 40 years. I'm sure it's had maintenance with like gaskets and that replaced over time. I haven't been juiced on yet. I've jinxed myself. Now we get to take this whole contraption off. Oh, there's the juicing. We also have some like knick-knacky brackets in that. I'm gonna just run these off real quick too. They look like block-offs. Probably certain applications would have different coolant hoses. Let's work to get our lower front timing cover off. It looks like it's just this piece that comes off, and up here, that's all part of the cylinder head. We actually got a bunch of this stuff already loose, but a few more bolts to go. I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, but this is a 5.3 liter V12, which is just enormous and cool. There's all kinds of different horsepower ratings for this engine depending on like where it was made, where it was used, its emissions controls, anything from about 240 to right about 300 horsepower and about 300 pound-feet of torque. Ooh. Little oil passageway, I bet that's full of oil. That's a whole bunch of bolts and a flippity of the engine that I have to do.
After a few attempts at removing the front timing cover, it became pretty obvious that the upper oil pan was going to need to come off. Now remember, this is a V12 and a pretty heavy engine, so rather than fumbling around trying to rotate the engine over, let's just grab the engine hoist and stand the engine up.
It's a little sketchy, but that'll get it done. Looks like I can just zing these bolts out, these 13s here. I should be able to pop it off. This one has a little grounding strap on it, nice. Looks like I gotta do something with this here. This is like an oil filter housing thing. Oh yes! Oh, it's all sludgy. It's all mushy. Look at how sludgy that is. Came out, this is an aluminum piece too. This is probably worth 4 cents in scrap. Here's your pickup, it's all smashed. I wonder if we can take some of these things off now. Might make it sitting a little flatter, a little easier. Oh man, need a thinner socket for this one. Some people hate when I do what I just did with neutral dropping an electric ratchet, but that's right, you saw me do it. You're probably gonna be mad at me using a chrome extension on this too. Look, if you just put enough dirt on your chrome sockets, they look like they're impacts anyway, and you're fine. Okay, so, wow, look at that tube. It's like a press fit, I think. Yeah, here we go. Pretty sure that's how the repair manual says to remove it. Pull this windage tray off. Look at that. So there we go. Our crankshaft, connecting rods, all of it, cool.
Now we get to spend a few sketchy minutes with our engine hoist resetting our engine. Once we're back safely on the cart, we can focus on that front timing cover. However, after a few minutes of tapping on this cover to try to get it out, unfortunately, it looks like that is not gonna be our next step.
So it looks like because the studs go up like this, I can't pull them straight down. I'd have to take the studs out. So it looks like we're pulling cylinder heads first. I'm gonna treat our bolts here, nuts on our exhaust manifolds. I did the other side, but like a doofus, I didn't do this side. Ah, there's a spider. Ooh, it's a black widow. All right, I'm about to kill it. Oh God. Oh, there she goes. There she is. Sorry, girl. Ooh, she looks pissed. I'm gonna just put her out of her misery. Sorry, now I'm all spider paranoid. Black widows are pretty territorial though, right? Like if you see one, you're probably not gonna see any more, or is it the other way around? Well, we haven't had to break the torch out yet, so that's good. Which brings me to a point. Yeah, I probably could have bore scoped down a cylinder and been like, oh yeah, there's the problem. But what fun is that, honestly? This is a cool engine. It's a big old V12, all aluminum block, aluminum heads, and I think that's neat. So we all get to learn today. Let's undo the cam gear from the camshaft. So cam gear, camshaft lives back here. It also has these metal tabs that lock these bolts into place, which is kind of cool, except for when you want to work on it, then it's like, oh cool, I gotta get them out of the way. All right, so I'm gonna take these 2 bolts out, then I'm gonna rotate our engine around to give me access to the other 2 bolts. Then we should give this cam a little tap. Camshaft is away from our cam gear. Let's get our cam out next. These nuts with these separate washers is driving me insane. Now we can pop our caps off. I gotta tell you, so I have no idea the mileage of this engine. All I know is that, you know, it's 40 years old, but I gotta tell you, this top side of this engine looks pretty darn good. I mean, there's a little bit of wear on the cam bearings, but I wouldn't be mad at that. All right, so we should be able to lift this cam up and out. That's a big whacking stick. So this is actually, because of this flat piece at the bottom, this is a nice, be a good lamp camshaft. We're just gonna make all kinds of camshaft art.
After what felt like an eternity of removing the nuts that hold on this cylinder head, 26 in total, including a handful on the inside of the V that you could only get at with a box wrench, I thought I'd be able to pull the cylinder head right off. However, that wasn't the case. This cylinder head also has an upper and a lower section, which is a pretty interesting design, and to be honest, I'm not exactly sure why that is. I also went ahead and removed that upper portion of the cylinder head, and it got us no closer to getting the whole entire cylinder head off our engine than had I just left it on.
Look at this whole monstrosity right here. Wow, 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 wow. This is kind of cool. It's like a giant T for terrible. Oh, there we go. Yeah. It still feels like something's holding it on, like I missed a bolt. On the plus note, the other side's gonna come off real easy because we know how to do it. No, that was it. Holy crap. It's just seized on there. Oh, okay. I see what the problem is, and I'll show you as soon as I get this off of here. That's definitely why it wasn't coming off. You get to wait in suspense for just another minute or so. All right, friends, step in and let me show you what was actually holding the cylinder head on. So not only did we find out why the heck I couldn't get the cylinder head off, we found our problem. Let's first look at why the cylinder head was so stuck on there. Seemed like it was still bolted on. You can see in these studs all this corrosion and junk that is built up over the years. So even with my medium big pry bar prying on it, it wasn't coming up. It looks like a small stud, probably one of those fuel rail studs that broke off in this backside cylinder right here. You can see it wedged into the valve on the intake side right here, and then you can see the corresponding impact mark on the piston, so the piston probably jammed it up in there, wedged it in there. Now, if this were any other engine, I think we would probably just call it there. However, I think there's still some cool factor to having a big V12 engine in the shop. So I'm gonna take off the other cylinder head, taking the nuts and bolts out and all that stuff. It's the same as we just did, so we'll go high speed mode. After I get all that stuff out, I think we'll flip it and take a look at the bottom side. Plus, I really want to rotate it around and see all 12 pistons just burbling up and down. Now, shockingly, after getting the engine hoist hooked onto the cylinder head and the engine block strapped to the cart, she still didn't want to come off. So after a series of hammering and torching and hammering and torching and a lot more hammering, stinks. All right, well, I've messed with this cylinder head for longer than I wanted to, so we're gonna keep moving on and maybe it'll magically come off. There we go. There we go. Oh look, I didn't even bend the timing cover. Well, here's our timing chain setup. This is really cool. So we have these rods right here. I can't quite get it up there, but the cam can rest right in there so you can have all this stuff off. This is our tensioner. How the heck does this even work? Interesting. So kind of a unique tensioner style and very reasonably easy chain to mend with. This is your distributor gear. I'll probably pop these cam gears out. One chain, not like that Audi we did a while back that had like 93 chains. So this is the gear that rides your distributor. This is your crankshaft, obviously. And then our other cam is behind our cylinder head that I couldn't get off. Tired of struggling with it, buddy. Something I did notice with these chain guides is they're all metal with a coating on them. So, odds are this is probably the original guide and you can see just a little bit of wear on it. That's pretty impressive, I gotta say. Doesn't hurt that we have this beefy chain and all of the bolts have the tabs that lock them into place so you don't run into like 1.4 Volkswagen problems where the bolts back out. Let's see if we can get this front cover off. Oh, ow. Now we should be able to get our cam out. Oh, cool, it's not a 10 mil. Everyone likes when you get to break out the 11 millimeter socket. Said no one. All right, let's get these bolts out of here. This does look like it is in fact the oil pump. As we rotate, it squeezes the oil, pumps it through the system. It's pretty cool. Now, I guess our next step is to flip this beast over and take the crankshaft out. Throw myself into that pile in a second. Something that's wild is the size difference in components of this engine versus something modern. This is the AC compressor out of our 86 Jag engine, and this is the AC compressor out of my Mark IV R32. The clutch alone, look at the difference in clutch size. This is like 4 inches, 3 inches. Just look at the sheer size difference, but this probably weighs 5 times what this guy does right here. Ah, it's juicing, gross, being nasty. It's flowing, don't flow into the crack. This is why when you guys are worried about getting every tiny drop of oil out of your car, when you do an oil change, don't worry about it. You left some behind. All right, let's get that borked piston out. Here's our connecting rod. There we go. So this is our piston that got boogered up. This is a 3.45 millimeter bore. And yeah, a little sadness right there. Honestly, if that was the only thing, probably would have been okay to run this thing, but having that stud smashed in your valve, that's bad. I'm done. I'm over this completely. I was gonna leave it alone, but I can't leave it alone. Little cast manifold breakage. Ugh, there it is. There it is. Ha ha! I did it. It took all my energies, but I did it. That was probably the most amount of pointless work I've ever done in my whole life. Now I can feel a little okay about ending this video because I'm tired. Bye. After some cleanup and recovery on my end, we have our block with our pistons in it and this pile of parts right here that is waiting to go to the recycling. Now you might be wondering, could we have fixed this and is it worth it for that small doink on the piston as well as on the cylinder head? The cylinder head would have been a much harder repair to make than the piston. Honestly, you probably could have just left the piston alone and cleaned out the cylinders and put everybody back together. I think it would have taken substantial work to get the piston done, but if you needed a V12, it was fixable. Nothing crazy about this engine in that regard. So I have one more question. What other engine should I try and find so we can do a teardown on it? Let me know that down in the comments, and with that, I'm out. Have an awesome day. I'll talk to you again next time.